12-year-old Hikaru Nakamura plays chess like a grandmaster, and I have this game he played on the black side, and he was going against a player named Arthur. And this was played back in 1998 when Hikaru Nakamura was a straight up youngin. The game started off like this: d4, knight f6, and you already know that Hikaru Nakamura always talks about how he loved the King's Indian defense, and so that's the moves that were played. c4, g6, knight c3, and we got the moves bishop g7, e4, d6, and let's continue. After the move d6, we got the move bishop g5, castle kingside, regular opening theory in the King's Indian defense, and then we got this weird move f4. Very aggressive, trying to punish the black side, playing the King's Indian defense. And I know a lot of people like playing in this strategy. This is like opposite from classical play, but this is like hyper modern play. But anyway, Hikaru Nakamura decided to counterattack in the center by playing the move c5. After playing the move c5, d5, he was pretty aggressive, especially as a young person, so he played some type of Banco Gambit. I know it's not exactly the Banco Gambit, but the sacrifice reminds me of the Banco Gambit. After playing the move b5, c takes on b5, then Hikaru Nakamura was like, I'm okay with playing a6 at this moment. And just to give you a little bit of history, Hikaru Nakamura at this time was 2201 playing this game. And he wasn't a grandmaster, but he knew the strategies of what to do, especially in this position. After playing a6, b takes on a6, then bishop takes on a6. The game continued with Arthur taking that bishop, knight takes on a6, and yes, this game is far from over, and Hikaru Nakamura sacrificed the pawns on the queen side to get some activity against these two pawns, and now white is going to have to deal with this, probably trying to do the move e5 in the future, develop the knight to f3 sometime soon, and let's figure out how both players interacted with this position. After the knight took on a6, Arthur put the knight on f3. After knight f3, queen b6, not queen a5, but queen b6, staying on this diagonal of if this king ever castles. All right, and when the king castles, is going to land on the g1 square, and maybe c4 might be a good check on the king right there. And so after queen b6, not only eyeing this diagonal, but attacking this pawn on the b2 square, white did the move rook b1. And based on the computer, they're already on black side because black has a lot more development than white, and the king is still not castled. So after rook b1, which is an inaccuracy, black did the move c4, maybe threatening this check on the e3 square and other things. So after c4, queen e2, rook f c8, a small mistake because the computer would much rather you play the move knight b4. But I digress. We're humans, we don't care about the chess engine that much, especially in certain positions where no human would have ever found that move. We're not talking about players like Magnus Carlsen, we're talking about normal day players when Hikaru Nakamura was a 2200 back in 1998. So after the moves rook f to c8, white was like, hey, I'm gonna go to queen f2 because I want to trade queens. That's my main goal. Can I trade queens, please? There's too much pressure. I can't deal with all this, and I want to release it. What do you think Hikaru Nakamura played here? What do you think he played? Well, he didn't accept the exchange, especially since he knew that, okay, I'm down in material. I shouldn't be exchanging pieces because the more I exchange, the more that extra pawn that white has will become more prevalent in the position. So he played the excellent move, knight c5. And then once you see the move knight c5, you realize that queen f2 was a waste of time, and that was the move that black needed to get a winning position. After knight c5, kingside castle happened, which is more of an inaccuracy. And when we look at this position, let's look at our little board right quick. We have less material because of the pawn. I feel like something is on me. We have less material because of the pawn. King safety. Definitely our king is safer than our opponents. Development time. We have more development. Their pieces is very discoordinated, especially since they're not really doing anything. There's not really a good job for their pieces. Even this bishop right here, it could take on f6, bishop takes on f6, and there's no real damage or plan for white to do. It's unorganized. So black has more time, definitely. Center control, I would say that white has a little bit more center control, but black is definitely honing in on the dark squares. So kind of, maybe I could just say that it's equal. Pawn structure. I guess you would have to say that black has a better pawn structure since they only have one pawn structure. One pawn island, my bad. And then space. Black has more space, especially on the queen side, and that's why white doesn't have more space because, white didn't sacrifice the pawns. So was this material sacrifice worth it to get king safety, development, and a better pawn structure and space? Most definitely so, especially after the move knight g4, getting the initiative to attack the opponent. What is white supposed to do here? Imagine you're the white pieces and you're freaking out. You got the bishop lighting up the whole a1 to ha diagonal. You got knight g4 hitting the queen. And after this queen moves, guess what becomes noticed? This diagonal this queen has on the king on the g1 square. This queen is x-raying this king right here. If these pieces wasn't there, then there would definitely be a discovered check. And that's exactly what happened because after knight g4, queen e2, knight takes on e4, there's nothing good happening here. After knight takes on e4, king h1, then either knight going to f2 would win this position, but Hikaru Nakamura, as a youngin, he chose the g knight. Knight g to f2. King goes to g1. What's next? Knight to h3, checking the king twice again. The king has to move to h1. Now, I do want to mention one mistake. Don't think that this is smothered mate because once queen goes to g1, this knight can just capture the queen backwards. The rook would not capture the queen in this position. That would be the worst move. So you can't just go sacrificing your queen thinking that you have smothered mate all of a sudden. So after knight h3, the king moves to h1. Then now we move this knight on the e file to f2. What happens is rook has to capture the knight. Knight captures the rook, king g1, and then the final move that made Arthur resign the position. Young Hikaru Nakamura could have played knight d1. He could have, what's some other moves that he could have played? He could have played knight d1, knight g4. Everything wins. But he played the move knight e4. He could have even played knight d3. Knight e4 wins because the king is being checked by the queen. So after the king moves, knight takes on c3 is another fork that you have to deal with because if b captures on c3, queen captures on b1. He was a beast. He was menacing. I would not want to see young Hikaru Nakamura if I was playing in a tournament back then. Just imagine that. I'm trying to feed my family and then young Hikaru Nakamura coming up to me like, hey, I'm trying to get the top rating in the world. I want to be world champion. I'm going to be afraid. I'm going to be like, dude, what do you think this is? I got 2 kids to feed. You trying to beat me? My name is Arthur. But anyway, hey, hopefully you like this content. Please follow, subscribe, do what you got to do. Watch another video. I have a lot of them here, like over 1,000. Come on now. Keep on watching.